On this edition of In the Life,
he had AIDS.
To be black and gay in the age of AIDS. Transgendered musicians making music, making changes.
I was playing the role of David Buchanan.
And Tammy Baldwin goes to Washington. All this and more on In the Life, America's lesbian and gay cultural news magazine. In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Gill Foundation, the Ted Snowden Foundation, the Threshold Foundation, Orlando Reese, William J. Resnick, the Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice, and In the Life members like you.
welcome to In the Life. Hi, I'm Katherine Linton. Over the years, In the Life has worked to present a rich and diverse image of the gay and lesbian community. On this episode, we continue that effort by looking at a new movement to combat sexual stereotypes, and at 3 musicians who can truly be called crossover artists. We'll also meet a congresswoman who, through her successful campaign, has inspired a whole new generation of voters.
I couldn't believe that it was really happening for a long, long time that evening, and in fact, delayed coming over to the victory party until almost all the numbers were in.
We need people like Tammy Baldwin who will remind us, who will challenge us, who will constantly tell us that we can do better.
In our first segment, we confront the troubling reality that along with diversity can come disparity. This is no more evident than in the ongoing battle against AIDS, a struggle that has historically been most associated with the gay community. Studies now show, though, that the African American community is disproportionately affected by the disease. Paul Mueller reports on the rise of AIDS among African Americans, as well as the impact of class, color, and a lack of information.
Kwanzaa, a unique celebration of African American people and culture. 1998 marked its 32nd anniversary, observed by more than 13 million people worldwide. Each day for 7 days, a candle is lit, symbolizing African American pride. But in recent years, this community has felt the deadly consequences of a devastating epidemic. 16,000 people become infected with HIV each day, and nearly all of them live in developing countries. Now, here in the U.S., the number of new reported AIDS cases is on the decline, except in the African American and Hispanic communities, which are experiencing the disease in epidemic proportions, more reported cases than ever before. According to the Centers for Disease Control, nearly 45% of the new reported AIDS cases in 1997 were among blacks, even though they account for only 13% of the population.
It's a national shame and a human tragedy that AIDS in America has been allowed to become blacker, browner, younger, and more female.
Philip Hilton is vice president of the New York-based National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS.
Anywhere you have socioeconomically disadvantaged African Americans constituting the majority of any population in any given city, town, or village, chances are they're going to be living in conditions that rival those that exist in third world countries. We do not have access to quality health care, if we have access to health care at all.
Some people find out about HIV after they've been infected, but that doesn't mean it's too late to stay healthy. Kevin Hardaway tested HIV positive 3 years ago. He remembers how he felt when his doctor broke the news.
Kind of afraid, kind of frightened, I knew it came with the territory, I was scared. People used to share needles quite often. I've shared them, you know, before this virus was even mentioned.
But what Kevin didn't know could have killed him. Today, he's changed the way he lives to accommodate the virus.
I have to take care of myself a lot better, you know, eat the proper foods, you know, stay in tune with my doctor, you know, things like that.
Things like that he learned as a client at Beehive, Better Existence with HIV, a 10-year-old Chicago-based AIDS service organization serving primarily African-American men who are or were IV drug users.
I think largely African Americans, especially in inner cities, are dealing with so many issues that sometimes HIV risk is the last in a long line of concerns. Concerns such as drug use, gang activity, just surviving.
As the number of reported AIDS cases continued to rise, Beehive developed 2 new programs centered around issues within the African American community.
I think there's a lot of homophobia and a real denial in the community to acknowledge HIV and AIDS as a problem because it means discussing drug use and sexuality.
It just came to a point where I said, I want to live. You know, I don't want to die. You know, in order to do that, you know, I have to seek, you know, help.
AIDS awareness reached a new level of national exposure in October when President Clinton responded to a call from the Congressional Black Caucus for action in the war against the disease. The president declared AIDS an ongoing and severe health crisis in communities of color and unveiled a plan for $156 million in additional federal funding for programs targeting African Americans and Latinos.
This is an unprecedented, historic initiative. Until the 105th Congress and the President of the United States pretty much came to the rescue, we never really had any programs or any specific funding to address those special needs that we have in the Black community.
The Congressional Black Caucus came out and basically declared a state of emergency in the African American community in terms of the AIDS epidemic, and I'm glad to see leadership on a national level.
But not everyone is breathing a collective sigh of relief. Some, like Hilton, worry about what will happen when the money runs out.
This is just the beginning, because this is a one-time only initiative. Once the monies have been spent, unless additional monies are allocated by the 106th Congress, and there's a continuing commitment by the Clinton administration to make sure that we build upon the track record that we've established with this initial $156 million, we're going to find ourselves right back where we started before.
Good morning, Momentum. How may I help you?
Hi. The leading cause of HIV infection in communities of color is IV drug use. The Momentum AIDS Project in New York serves over 2,000 clients, predominantly IV drug users, African Americans, and Latinos, a stark contrast to its gay white male clients when it began 14 years ago.
The gay community really worked to conquer the disease with their money, with their expertise, with their various resources. They had a power base that they could use. The more disenfranchised communities don't have access to that.
Proper nutrition is Momentum's primary approach in its outreach program, and many of its clients are hungry and homeless.
In addition to the food, we do a rather comprehensive nutrition program, which is very important as nutrition is a co-therapy for people who have AIDS. People who have compromised immune systems need different foods from those who do not have compromised immune systems.
While most organizations accept clients only after their T cells fall below a certain level, Momentum was one of the first organizations to offer services to clients who are newly HIV diagnosed.
If people don't come early, there's no way to be preventive. If you wait until people have been hospitalized a couple of times, you can help them, but not in the same kind of way.
How you doing, sister? Oh, good show is good to see you. You too. Thank you.
Back in Chicago, an African-American performance ensemble uses humor, drama, and dance to address African-American gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered issues. The members of A Real Read tell their own stories and write material from their own life experiences. Their mission is all about HIV and AIDS prevention to their community.
He told me I should trust him. He told me just where and how I should touch him. He told me he loved me. But he told me that he couldn't tell me that he had AIDS because that was too personal.
I may be dying, but I gotta stick around long enough to teach my baby.
So the messages that have reached the white gay community, because they're targeted to them, have worked. They haven't reached the African American community because a lot of the men in the African American community, or some of them, are what we call MSMs, men who just mess around with other men. And that is really one of the big things that is killing us.
It's unique that we have an opportunity, again, to see a group of people on stage that are saying very clearly out loud, I'm African American, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I'm bisexual, I'm transgendered, and I'm proud of it. We are all part of this community. We talk about the diversity of the community, we talk about the rainbow, but we often don't see it as the reality.
That man has got to be a homosexual.
The reality, though, for Kevin has set in, and now he's offering advice to those who think they may be at risk for HIV.
If they live in this type of lifestyle, I think they should be tested, you know, period.
At the rate we're going right now, it's almost impossible for me to think that things can get much worse than they are at the present time.
Right now in New York City, 1 out of 50 people is HIV positive or has AIDS. You know, that's almost every street corner you're on. That's almost every restaurant you're in. It's every subway car you're in.
I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman. I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman. Part of her power being she was a bad butch who made women unravel, come undone at the seams like Wonder Woman. Beneath her armor was desperate. I knew I never should have gotten involved with that woman, but somewhere inside she moved me to another country and I started speaking in languages I had never learned. One of the most effective tools in the fight against AIDS is having the right information, facts about prevention and treatment. If you want more information on AIDS in communities of color, contact the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS or the National Minority AIDS Council. For these and other links to organizations working in the battle against AIDS, check out our website at inthelifetv.org. This is Pamela Sneed for In the Life.
When it comes to questions of sexual identity, bisexuals are often misunderstood or misrepresented. They're often portrayed as confused, traitors to the gay movement, or anomalies in the straight world. But bisexual men and women are working to combat those stereotypes while taking the lead in debates over the nature of sexual orientation. Jonathan Capehart reports.
I'm not really straight, and I'm not really gay. All I am is me, and what more can I say? You tell me, make your mind up, well, how can I choose? I can't play it straight or gay, each way I lose. I've got the borderline bisexual blues.
When you're bisexual and you come out, first you get all the problems in the straight culture that gays have. Child custody battles, legal discrimination, job loss, violence, battering. But when you enter the gay culture as a bisexual, you don't get immediate and unqualified support.
Although the road to understanding has not been easy, bisexuals have recently become a recognized social and political force. Last December, BiNet, a national bisexual organization, released a poster and statement in response to last year's ex-gay ad campaign, which promoted the conversions of gays and lesbians to heterosexuality through therapy.
Many of these people who the right wing is trying to scare straight may in fact be bisexual, not only gay.
A lot of this ex-gay movement is really turning gays into bisexuals, or bisexuals remaining bisexual with more of a slant towards the other sex.
This possibility, bisexual activists say, has been overlooked by both sides of the ex-gay controversy, which have been debating whether or not homosexuality is a choice.
It's a choice to be where I am today.
It's not a choice as far as my attractions or my sexuality.
Perhaps one reason bisexuality has been overlooked is the fact that bisexuals are not as visible.
The problem with defining a bisexual is if a man, for instance, is going out with a woman, everybody considers him straight. If he's going out with a guy, then everybody considers him gay, so you have to know the history as opposed to a snapshot of where the person is at any one time.
In the past, many people thought of bisexuality as a phase, and that so-called bisexuals would ultimately choose between being gay or being straight.
I was a very public lesbian mother here in San Francisco, and I fell in love with a man who identified as bisexual, and I completely flipped out because I believed there was no such thing as a bisexual, that I couldn't be a bisexual, that I couldn't go back to San Francisco with a boyfriend. Oh my God, what am I going to do?
People are always coming up to me, both in my lesbian social circles and among my straight social circles, and they're always saying, well, aren't you people just gay people who can't manage to come out?
I remember going to the libraries and reading books about this and realizing, oh, this is just a phase, you'll go through this and you'll be fine by the time you turn, get in your late 20s. Well, it didn't happen.
Lesbianism was a stage for me. Heterosexuality was a stage for me. It's okay to have stages in our life.
The important thing to realize is that a person's sexual orientation is fluid and it changes over time. So what you were yesterday, you might not be today, and what you are today, you might not be tomorrow.
I've met official lesbians who had large numbers of affairs with men in their past, and I've met so-called straight people who had 3 or 4 very passionate affairs with members of their own gender.
Think I could identify with straights half the time, but that's not as easy as it sounds.
In addition to issues of visibility, bisexuals are also fighting stereotypes.
Lesbian women have a hard time trusting that you could really love them and not want something different. I think the impression that bisexuals can't be or aren't monogamous comes from the misimpression that being attracted to more than one sex or gender is assumed to mean that you have to have it all the time, and that you have to have both to be satisfied and happy. I've seen a lot of bisexuals be monogamous, and I've also seen heterosexual and homosexual people love more than one person and have multiple relationships. I liked it. I like it with this lemon. It's fine. Yeah. Andrew and I have a committed, open relationship. He's someone that I've been with for a little over 3 years, and it's the healthiest relationship I've been in.
I was very much in love with my first wife. I met her when I was in 7th grade. I make a commitment. I'm committed to that person. I just believe in being faithful.
One of the hardest things in 1980 when I came out as a bisexual was that I became every straight man's fantasy. Oh my God, now there's a chance to go to bed with 2 women. If it was one of my sexual fantasies, maybe we could talk about it, but don't make assumptions about who I am just because I say I'm bisexual.
Jeffrey Thornton Wells.
One myth I deal with all the time is that bisexuals bring AIDS to the heterosexual and lesbian gay communities. Lesbians who get AIDS or any sexually transmitted illness, which any of us can get, and bisexual women who get them the same ways. Unsafe sex with men. Back in the early 80s, they got it from blood transfusions because our national blood banks weren't screened for the AIDS virus. Many times there's a history of alcohol and drug abuse and IV drug use. So the risk factors are the same for lesbians and for bi women.
I'm really straight, and I'm not really gay.
Bisexuals are just beginning to dispel these myths through education and advocacy. As a result, the gay and straight communities are beginning to understand and accept bisexuality.
With all the bisexual, transgender, and intersex people in the room, please come forward so that we can see you all.
When I go to gays and lesbians to negotiate coalitions and work with them, they're now using the terminology GLBT, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. So when I go to lesbians and gays now, Often it's like, oh, well, here's Robin. She'll serve as the bisexual person in our committee.
My friend's son came home one day with purple nails and said, yes, he's bisexual. And he says, well, that's cool. I mean, all the kids are except for those straight jocks.
All the work I did in the 70s was not erased because I came out as bisexual. There's a lot of bisexual people who have given time, energy, love.
Bisexual pride speaks to the truth of behavior and identity. Remember, we are family, and like a large extended family, we don't always agree. However, we must recognize the importance of what each and every one of us brings to this movement.
In times of adversity, art can be a healer. In our next segment, Kate Bornstein profiles 3 musicians who faced the music about their gender choices, and in doing so, found a much more honest expression of their art.
Dorothy Lucille Tipton was born in Oklahoma City in 1914 to a family that encouraged her passion for music from a young age. Her goal was to play professionally in a jazz band. There was just one problem. Women in the jazz business usually took a back seat to the men, and Dorothy wanted time in the spotlight. As biographer Diane Middlebrook explains, Dorothy found an unusual solution to achieve her goal.
She was going to go audition for a job, and in order to get it, she was going to put on men's clothes. She put on a man's jacket, slicked her hair back, went off, auditioned for the job, got the job, went on the road, came home with money in her pocket, and from that day on, they said, she never looked back. She saw that this was the way that she was going to be able to get what she wanted, which was work in a band.
Defying the odds, Billy Tipton carved out a career in the music business that lasted more than 40 years.
Billy made his living playing music, and that was hard to do. He wasn't a star, he wasn't a recording star, for example. He was never on television and never made it big, but he had a very solid professional life.
On stage and in his private life, Billy guarded his secrets so well that 4 of his 5 wives, his 3 adopted sons, and most of the musicians that he worked and traveled with said that they didn't suspect that Billy was anything other than he seemed.
Dorothy found in herself the ability to be an entertainer, an actor, acting the role of a musician as well as playing the music, and that double identity was Billy Tipton.
Jameson Green, founder of FTM International, a support group for female-to-male transgendered people, suspects that there may have been another factor in Billy's choice besides his love of music.
Maybe he put it on as a way to get a job in the beginning, or maybe that's just what he told people because it was a safe thing to say. But ultimately, there's a place where this becomes who you are, and to take that identity off means not being yourself anymore. So in that way, Billy Tipton's experience much more closely relates to the kind of experience that trans people have. As he was living as a man, he was able to express himself as a man and able to actualize that identity.
Was Billy Tipton a role played with consummate skill by an enterprising and talented actress? Or was Billy the real personality of the girl born as Dorothy? Billy left no memoirs or records, so there is no way of knowing for certain what his true motivations were.
He did say to one of his cousins, you know, I'm a normal person. I'm not a freak, I'm not a hermaphrodite. This has been my choice. This way of life has been my choice.
The important thing to be understood about trans people is that they aren't being who they are not. They are being who they are. Billy described himself as a musician and as a man. The most important thing about honoring Billy is not to take those identities away from him.
As a child, David Buechner was a musical prodigy, impressing his music teacher with his ability to sight-read music at the age of 4. He went on to study at Juilliard at the age of 17 and began entering and winning competitions after graduation. His skills as a performer were in great demand, and he also enjoyed success as a professor at the Manhattan School of Music and New York University. But no matter how much he achieved, David felt like there was something missing from his life.
was playing a role. You know, I was playing the role of David Buechner very, very well, but it was, I felt increasingly so empty inside. That was not me. And the fact that I played it well brought no comfort to me. At a certain point, I just basically decided I could not be two people anymore. That's what it felt like. I mean, it was just like being a schizophrenic, and it was horrible. It's really horrible.
In July of 1998, at the age of 39, David Buechner played his last performance, then hung up his tuxedo for good. Sarah Buechner made her debut in September, and along her journey has rediscovered her joy in music.
And what has been the most beautiful thing, really, has been coming in here to teach in a classroom with students who have come up to me in the halls. One person said, "You know, you're my role model." I never would have expected this in a million years. Okay, this is all transition to the second theme. Professionally, I assumed, in a cynical sense, that concerts would come. I didn't expect it would explode, but I thought that somebody would say, "Hey, that's going to sell tickets. Let's hire her." And instead, quite the opposite. This seems to have been totally shut down. I've had a lot of people say to me, "You know, it's really something that I see you now, and I see you as, I have the feeling I'm seeing you as you really are."
From the world of classical music to that of heavy metal, transgendered musicians are making their mark. Christine Beattie is the lead singer of Glamazon, a band she co-founded in 1993.
I want people to see that I'm a person worthy of respect, a person worthy of civil and human rights. A lot of the songs that we do get into a social commentary. Holy War, which is the first song on our CD, takes to task hypocrisy in religious leaders and some followers.
Christine's inner struggle to accept her identity as a woman brought her face to face with some frightening issues.
In general, I haven't gotten a lot of support for this from my family, from none of the people that were supposedly my friends at the time. I became a major heroin addict, and I was on welfare. I was no good to anybody, especially myself.
She found refuge in her writing, in her work as a computer programmer, and increasingly in her music.
There's just no feeling that can compete with being up there on stage with the atmosphere just right, and you know you're sounding good and the crowd's loving you. There's just nothing to compare with that. Rock music tends to be male-dominated in the first place, and so women being in rock, that alone is a challenging concept. You throw in the transgender issue on top of that, there's been quite a few doors that have been closed to me. On the other hand, it's a great way to get people to pay attention to you.
I think there's been a lot of change in people's awareness since Billy Tipton's time. The whole transgender movement has really picked up, and the amount of education that's going on now about what transgender is and what it means is phenomenal.
I didn't really have any role models when I was starting out, other than, you know, the top dollar prostitutes. And I think it's important for people with gender issues to see that you don't need to go that route, that you can be a professional, you can be an artist, you can be whatever you set your mind to be.
My parents knew I was different. How could they help it? I was wandering around the house in clothes I'd found in an attic belonging to my mother or my grandmother, saying, "Today I am a beautiful princess." For more information on the life of Billy Tipton, you might want to read Suits Me, The Double Life of Billy Tipton by Diane Wood Middlebrook, whom I believe you've just met in our story. For more information on Christine Beattie and her cyber rock band Glamazon, you must surf your way to their website, which has been magically linked to our own. This is Quentin Crisp for In the Life.
Still to come on In the Life.
The off-Broadway hit Stop Kiss, wowing audiences with its comic tale about love in a hostile landscape. And gays and lesbians fight to march in ethnic Pride Day parades. But first...
The results in the November 1998 elections were in many cases surprising, but in one race in Wisconsin, historic. Tammy Baldwin's election to the House of Representatives proved that a politician can be out without being down. In the life profiles, a congresswoman who's bringing a little more diversity to the House on Capitol Hill as Tammy Baldwin goes to Washington.
One of the most important fights being waged in the area of human rights in the world today is the fight in America over gay and lesbian rights. The progress we make really resonates worldwide. And Tammy Baldwin is ideally placed to be a major participant in that fight.
How much do we value our children, our families, and the professionals who care for them?
Because she is such a good combination of tough-mindedness and idealism.
A native of Madison, Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin began her career in elective politics 12 years ago, serving 4 terms on the Dane County Board of Supervisors and 3 terms in the Wisconsin State Assembly. In 1998, the 36-year-old open lesbian decided to go national.
On Tuesday, November 3rd, send Tammy Baldwin to Congress.
I've always been very excited by public service. At some point, I asked a question of myself, would I be more influential, would I have more impact and effect if I stayed in the Wisconsin State Legislature or if I took this risk and this leap? And I ultimately determined that I could have a bigger impact if elected to Congress.
We need people like Tammy Baldwin who will remind us, who will challenge us, who will constantly tell us that we can do better.
Though she received early support from First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, there were still questions about whether being an out lesbian made Tammy Baldwin a viable candidate.
In my campaign for Congress, there was a moment during the primary election where I thought we weren't going to be able to talk about anything else. It was a 6-way Republican primary, and one candidate got involved in that race, bound and determined to make the issue the only issue in his campaign. When he did so, he was so universally criticized and condemned for making this an election about hate politics that in many ways that issue disappeared as a central theme.
Tammy Baldwin will take on issues that congressmen don't deal with.
Voters were pretty clear about telling me what they were concerned about. People were talking to me about health care, and they were talking to me about education.
Like fighting to protect our seniors' Social Security from risky Wall Street investment schemes, and ensuring that our kids will have a guaranteed quality public education.
The thing that was most distinct about Tammy was her refusal to be trapped in the corners of American politics. What made her campaign unique was a determination to play it her way.
John Nichols from Madison's Capital Times wrote some of the earliest pro-Baldwin editorials.
So often in any media coverage it would say, Tammy Baldwin, comma, the first openly lesbian candidate for Congress from Wisconsin, comma. That was like her full name, right? But as the campaign went on, that started not appearing anymore. And she was able to break through and be referred to as Tammy Baldwin, Democratic candidate for Congress.
So there's a real ambivalence now.
Tammy Baldwin was also endorsed by Congressman Barney Frank and the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund, which raised more than $100,000 for her campaign.
We have been helping Tammy, certainly from day one, but at every level, giving her technical support if she needed it, serving as a resource here in Washington. Serving as a cheerleader, quite honestly, is a big deal. Getting the message out there that she can win.
In addition to the support of the power players in Washington, an estimated 3,000 volunteers were recruited locally.
If you went into her campaign office, there were people who were over 70 stuffing envelopes, but there were also a tremendous number of people in their late teens, early 20s, some of whom took off a semester of college just to work for Tammy Baldwin.
Well, I had an internship at the campaign through the political science department, and basically I would go there about 10 hours a week during the spring semester.
My role was that I worked on campus trying to essentially get the people in the dorms, the people who had just moved to the Madison area, to go out and vote.
I formed the student organization, Students for Tammy Baldwin, and basically starting to recruit volunteers, students to get excited about the campaign.
Student vote was an amazing aspect of our campaign. We paid attention to campus and really made a connection that was very, very important.
Once students graduate, a lot of times they don't have health care coverage. And so that was something that Tammy talked about a lot, that what are you going to do when you turn 25 or 24, you graduate, you don't have health insurance?
On campus on election night on November 3rd, there were lines of people waiting to vote. They had underestimated how many people would turn out, and they ran out of ballots in ward after ward.
We did it! And through our activism, commitment, and hopefulness, we also made a little history.
It really was such a milestone. It was one of the happiest moments of my life, I think, when Tammy Baldwin won.
I couldn't believe that it was really happening for a long, long time that evening, and in fact, delayed coming over to the victory party until almost all the numbers were in and that we were absolutely certain.
Allow me to introduce to you the new congresswoman from the 2nd District of Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin.
Having someone like Tammy who is out and who is as respected as she undoubtedly will be, who will be so articulate, they'll see her, and they'll see her as a very effective congresswoman who is not at all embarrassed or unwilling to note the fact that she's a lesbian.
She has that ability to disarm people. And I think that is one of the best benefits she will bring to the dialogue in Washington.
We have shown that in politics, it's okay to dream about the future we want to create.
Gays and lesbians in America have fought a lot of fights to be let in the room. Tammy Baldwin, I think, is talking about a next step where gays and lesbians are accepted as human beings at the table.
Every time I've taken a risk in politics, be it on an issue or running for office myself, there have always been a group of cynics or naysayers saying, you know, it can't be done. This has never been done before. When I first started in politics, I was told I was too young. At other points in time, I was told that I was too progressive. You know, a woman had never been elected, an out lesbian had never been elected. There were always reasons not to do it. Sure, there were days I didn't know whether this could happen or not. There were many such days, but I always had faith. One of the sayings that we repeated over and over in the campaign was the famous quote from anthropologist Margaret Mead, who never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world.
Indeed, it's the only thing that
Not only is Tammy Baldwin the first openly gay non-incumbent to be elected to Congress, but she's also the first woman to represent the state of Wisconsin.
Gay people, they want to get married like straight people. They want to have children like straight people. We're having baby showers. I have no clue what I'm doing in a baby shower. I had to have a baby shower for a friend of mine, and I didn't know what to do. I got them a Michelin tire. It just seemed...
Hello, I'm Kate Clinton. Tammy Baldwin acknowledged the assistance of the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund in her successful bid for Congress. The fund, which raises money and campaigns for openly gay candidates, has supported Baldwin throughout her political career. If you'd like more information about the Victory Fund and the work they do across the country, go to the In the Life website at inthelifetv.org. And I'm available for money at geniusgrant.com.
From the political stage, we move to the New York stage, where issues of identity are being explored in a new off-Broadway play. Stop Kiss by playwright Diana Sun has become one of the hottest tickets of the season. Tanya Barfield went to the Public Theater in New York to find out what the excitement is all about.
Oh, so how long have you lived in this apartment?
5 years. Well, 2 by myself. It's a funny, not ha-ha story.
Oh, it's okay.
I moved in here with my boyfriend Tom. This was his aunt's apartment. She lived here for 20 years.
Oh, your rent must be
Lucky, really.
You are.
Well, you know, I got the apartment, he got my sister.
Critics have hailed the Public Theater's production of Stop Kiss as poignant, funny, engaging, and unsettling. It's the bittersweet story of Sarah and Callie, two women who have never even considered a lesbian relationship and are unaware of their desires for each other. The play centers on the repercussions of their first and very public acknowledgement of their feelings. A kiss shared on a park bench.
Okay. Try again.
And so you meet these two people, and you see where they're coming from, and you see each other's friends, particularly centered around Jessica Hecht's character, Callie, the New Yorker, and I play Sarah, who comes to New York for the first time from St. Louis, and they meet. They fall in love.
You know, I like to go sometimes. Sure. Will you let me know when it's time to go? Sure.
And at the moment when they feel closest and they have a very honest and generous and loving kiss, this kiss that just comes out of their friendship, someone, beats the hell out of both of them.
It's a love story about these two women who meet, and it's also centered around a gay bashing.
The gay bashing occurs when an unknown intruder goes berserk after seeing the two women kiss.
What'd she say?
She said,
What?
she told him to fuck off, then he hit her.
He hit her with his fist.
He hit her in her back, and then he grabbed her away.
Grabbed away from who? From you?
I was holding onto her arm with my hand like this. I wanted us to leave, but then he grabbed her and he threw her against the building, started banging her head against the building, and then he smashed her head against his knee like one of those wrestlers. That's when she lost consciousness, and then he smashed her again.
Playwright Diana Sun did a great deal of research into anti-gay violence while writing Stop Kiss, so the recent murder of Matthew Shepard came as no surprise to her.
When the Matthew Shepard incident happened, it wasn't a discovery, oh my God, this really happens, but it's terrifyingly likely, that people perceived to be gay even, are sort of so likely to be victims of violence.
How do you eat corn on the cob? Around the world or typewriter style? Typewriter. Meat.
What's notable about this sensitive coming-out tale is the creative team behind it. The playwright, as well as the two lead actors, are straight.
I totally identify myself as completely heterosexual. If I met someone and then like this happened, I mean, it would be like it's familiar, but it's completely not familiar. So I appreciate that the play deals with the fact that it is a completely new territory for these two people.
For Jessica Hecht, who plays a lesbian on the popular sitcom Friends, her character's sexuality is not about labels, it's about love.
People don't always fall in love because they want to be with a certain kind of person, or they have a certain sexual identity that they want to exercise, or they have a certain agenda in their lives. People so often fall in love despite all ideas of who they are. And in this case, these people fall in love to the benefit of their existence as human beings.
Sometimes the rush of identifying yourself, the commitment to it sort of makes you want to narrow things and exclude things. And I think that this play is so much more about opening.
Do you wait in line or online?
Oh, now I wait online, but I used to wait in.
Oh! But basically you're in a line, not on a line.
Stick to your guns. I caved.
No, you say on, I say in.
What about this?
Why? You just said that.
Hopefully what you see on stage are two people who just get each other, who get each other's rhythms, and who deal with each other. It's like, okay, you're like that? Okay, I accept that, because I just love being around you, and you really get me. And I think ultimately that's the basis of all love stories.
Try again.
From the Public Theater in New York, this is Tanya Barfield for In the Lab.
There is perhaps no other country that is as diverse as this one. And in the nation of immigrants, many people look to their ethnic communities for a sense of identity or a connection to their roots. But what happens when you're gay? Well, for our final segment, In the Life profiles 3 organizations that work to promote cultural solidarity while making gay men and lesbians more visible in their ethnic communities.
I'm first generation Irish American. My parents are from Ireland, so I've always been involved with the Irish American community.
I was born in India. I'm from South India, from Kerala. I moved to the US when I was 8.
I was born in New Jersey. My parents are from the Philippines.
My involvement with the Irish Lesbian and Gay Organization was from a listing in one of the papers, the Irish papers in New York. I saw the listing, and that's how I got involved. The Irish Lesbian and Gay Organization started out as a group mostly of immigrants that were recently arrived, lesbian and gay people, to serve as a social center, also a political center, and just to form an informal network of people that, had come from Ireland who didn't know that there were other lesbian and gay people in Ireland or that were Irish, or to break down that kind of I'm the only one belief.
I came to the group because of the protests, and I suppose my issue, more than being so Irish myself, is about the feeling that it's important for people to have multiple identities, and it's possible to be Irish and queer when we're excluded from things that are part of those identities.
Since 1991, ILGO has been protesting the organization's exclusion from New York's St. Patrick's Day Parade, the largest celebration of ethnic pride in the city. Courts have ruled that as a private organization, the AOH, or Ancient Order of Hibernians, is entitled to decide who can be part of the parade.
There's an effort to say that we're a gay group rather than an Irish group. One of the things that has been said many, many times is we have our parade in June, and so we don't need this other parade, as if being gay means you can't be Irish.
In what has become a tradition in itself, ILGO's protests have been taking place for the past 8 years on the morning of the parade.
People assemble at the 42nd Street in front of the library and decide to take the protest onto the street, and that's where people are arrested. Another part, in the past 4 years, people have infiltrated the parade, marched along the parade route, and at a certain point taken out banners asserting their queer identity and Irishness, and they have also been arrested.
There should be no closet! It feels as if people certainly know about our efforts, and every year people associate the St. Patrick's Day Parade with the protest against the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which feels like a victory.
While ILGO's protests at the St. Patrick's Day Parade have made headlines year after year, the South Asian Lesbian and Gay Association, or SALGA, has waged a lesser publicized effort to be a part of the India Day Parade for the past 6 years.
We first started organizing around marching in the India Day Parade in 1992. One of our members, Anita, decided that she would contact the FIA in order to even just see if we could march. She was met with the most kind of virulent homophobia. They said something like, the first thing they said was, well, we deny your existence. There are no gay people in India, so we don't even understand that you exist. And then it got even worse, and he said something like, the representative of the FIA said something like, well, my personal belief is that you should all be lined up and shot. So it was that kind of extreme violent rhetoric and hostility that made us realize that we didn't have a choice. We really had to do this.
With the help of city officials, the FIA, or Federation of Indian Associations, gave Salga permission to march. But since then, the group has been barred from participating.
Parades are basically the way in which immigrant communities reimagine their homeland, you know, and the FIA really wants to reimagine India as Hindu, middle-class, patriarchal, and free of queers. And so in some ways that stance forces Salga to be multi-issue and not just talk about homophobia, but also talk about sexism and classism and religious fundamentalism and take on all those issues.
For Javed Syed, Salga was a space where he felt at home, both as a gay man and as a South Asian.
It was just great to be amongst an immigrant community that could understand my various realities, someplace where I didn't have to explain what India was about, whether there were trees or, you know, cows that we prayed to.
It was a place where we could talk about homophobia in non-racist ways in relation to South Asia.
Salga's continued exclusion from the India Day Parade has forced the organization to re-examine the ways in which it protests this exclusion in a less confrontational manner.
What we've been trying to do is create these spaces along the parade routes that will be about celebration of our diverse histories and sort of acknowledge the multiplicity of issues that we're working on, but do it in a way that isn't necessarily even an antagonism to the FIA, but sort of just say that, you know, well, we're here and we're part of the community.
Taking part and being visible in the Filipino immigrant community is the main reason that Kilawin Collectibo, a Filipino lesbian collective, has marched in the Philippine Independence Day Parade for the past 4 years.
I think it's great to march in the Philippine Independence Day Parade, mainly for visibility, so people know we're out there. There's this assumption that there isn't a big community of lesbians in the Filipino community, and it's good to break stereotypes.
Some members feel that it's much harder to march in the Philippine Independence Day Parade versus in the Gay and Lesbian Parade, because it's like coming out in your own backyard. To your friends, to your family, your family's there, your extended relatives are there, and it's really difficult. But what's been great about marching in the parade is that there has been that support.
They can show as much cultural, appreciation and diversity as anybody else.
In the Philippine Independence Day Parade, there are lots of beauty queens, marching bands,
religious groups,
regional groups. Yeah, regional groups celebrating their specific region of origin.
So I think Filipinos just like to celebrate whatever group or community they belong to, so we're just part of that. I don't know if everybody gets the picture, if they get the point, but for people who do, it does matter. I know, like, years ago when I was in the closet and we were at the Philippine Independence Day Parade, mainly to eat food, like a couple of my friends were like running back from like marching the parade, and they were like saying there's a group of like gay and lesbian Filipinos marching at the parade, and that was like mind-boggling to me. It changed my perception, and years later, you know, I was marching at the parade, and a couple of years later, my mother, who's 76 years old, was taking pictures of me marching at the parade. For people who are isolated, for people who think they're alone, I think it makes a big difference.
We're at a time where a lot of people think being lesbian and gay is just okay and easy and not a problem. I think it's important to be continually saying what's actually really going on.
It's not just, you know, an Irish issue. It's about homophobia, and homophobia is what spread the AIDS crisis. Homophobia is what will ostracize us and kick us out of our homes, our ethnic groups, and we all have to take our part to stand against that.
From all of us at In the Life, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Gill Foundation, the Ted Snowden Foundation, the Threshold Foundation, Orlando Reese, William J. Resnick, the Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice, and In the Life members like you.